to implement GBP in Vietnam. The first to the authorities. We have shortlist qualified auditor to meet to control to evaluate GBP requirement. Retail pharmacy differ between rural and mountainous and urban area because in Vietnam 70% of people population live in rural area. Number and qualification of pharmacies is limited. To the pharmacies, warranty of GBP is limited. Now, some pharmacy don't know GBP concept, don't know GBP. What is important for to implement GBP? They said that implementation GBP is they have air conditioner. This is a GBP requirement. Only the air conditioner is a GBP requirement. Investment for GBP may increase the drug price. Staff understaffed knowledge is limited. Unequal contact with trade between GBP and non-GBP pharmacy. For example, GBP pharmacy tax on non-turnover and non-GBP tax flat rate tax. GBP promotion plan in Vietnam. In future, we have to show the GBP implementation. First, GBP education should be provided both pharmacists and public. Now we lack education GBP requirement for public. Population don't know GBP is what is the GBP and what for GBP, and they can what they can have and pharmacy meet the GBP requirement. The second personnel, new concept of quality management, because now we have to drug strain in Vietnam. Some company have been set up pharmacy chain in city like Ho Chi Minh City, Hanoi, my capital. Drug supply allowed to direct importation, especially orphan drug. For definite prescription and OTC drug, insurance of prescription regulation, and this year, next year we issue GBP good prescribing practice to ensure GBP implementation. Next, GBP promotion via public media. Now we have we lack of this detail. Tax rates and tax policy. Oh, thank you for answering.
Thank you too. Don't wander away. Come on up here. There might be some questions that people might have to ask. There's a microphone here. I think you might just take the microphone with you, as I'm sure there'll be some questions. It would appear to me that you've done quite a lot in putting a plan in place. Could you just tell me how much of your GDP is spent on health in Vietnam? GDP.
Oh, yeah. Now we have about 900 wholesaler and only 10 to meet the GDP requirement.
I'm talking about your gross domestic product, how much of that is spent. In Australia, we're a very wealthy country, and when I populated that slide there, it's, we're going to be quite different than other countries. I think that I heard here in Taiwan that you spend 6% of your GDP on health. In Australia, it's nearly 10%, so we're far more wealthy and we can spend a lot more on health. But it sort of appears to me that you have a good plan. But there needs to be some drivers, and we are fortunate in our country we can put financial incentives in place for people do behave do. I'm just wondering, you have pharmacies that currently don't have pharmacists in them, a very blatant infringement of what their responsibilities would be, and you now have a plan for them to implement good pharmacy practice. How do you intend to enforce that?
Because now in next year we issue 2 regulations. First, regulation for hospital pharmacy, and the second regulation for drug chain store.
Okay. All right. Well, look, has anybody got any further questions? Thank you very much for. Yes, we do have a question over here.
Yes, I cannot understand when you say secondary pharmacist or assistant pharmacist in Vietnam is different from or like a hospital or community pharmacist, because you have called secondary pharmacist.
Pharmacists have to study 5 years. Pharmacist assistant study 3 years, and secondary pharmacy assistant have to 1 year. Different 3 level.
3 degrees.
Yeah, 3 degrees.
That means
Yeah.
1 year. After senior high school, you mean 1
Yeah,
year?
after they graduate high school.
High school, okay.
Yeah.
And you mentioned about the pharmacist. Is it right that both secondary pharmacist, assistant pharmacy, and the pharmacist all can own pharmacies? All of them can own pharmacies? Owner? No. But you
Only pharmacist can set up pharmacy, and other can set up retail, but retail only in rural area, and pharmacy in rural and urban area. Yeah.
So when you count the number of pharmacies, is it included drug agents owned by secondary or assistant pharmacy?
We have 41,000 retail and only 9,000 pharmacies, and other is the drugstore. Yeah, please.
Did everybody hear that question? Yeah. How do you evaluate whether they are complying with GDP? That was a question?
We have 2 documents: GPP requirement, GPP document, and checklist to evaluate the GPP. Yeah, we have checklist. We follow checklist to evaluate GPP.
What is the consumer attitude towards pharmacy in Vietnam? What is their expectations of pharmacy